Good morning, everyone. This is Kops Office Hours. I'm Chris. I'm your host today, apparently, not Justin anymore. Please keep in mind this is going to be recorded. So essentially, be a nice person, be nice to each other, and let's continue going through the agenda. All in all, I think Peter is asking if there is another planned release for Kops 116, like 116.3.
Yeah, we have I think a couple pull requests that have been merged into 116, and I guess we're curious if we want to plan another 116 release or just focus on getting 117 out the door.
I wouldn't mind a 116 release, but I would prefer we focus on getting 117 out the door first.
So I think they should both be done at the same time. Anyway, 116 should be done because of the OpenStack issue that, well, it's not working in 116. I think we discussed it last time. So only because of that, which is the biggest issue. But I agree with John. 117 is weighted by pretty much everyone. So if we can find a solution to move it forward would be very nice.
I agree with that. I think, we can do both. We should prioritize 117, but it's not that hard when I'm doing one release to do another. So we can talk about how ready are to do 117 later, but I think we probably need the 116 release anyway. And I think we have another topic that suggests I will be doing other releases. They might not be .0s, but they will be other releases. So we can certainly do 116.3 at the same time. Christian, I've spotted a flaw in your iPad hosting, which is when you switch to the agenda, we don't see. Yes, we know that you've done that, but I think it's fine.
Yep. I mean, it's just my face. It's not my audio. So essentially, yeah. Anything else to that point? 3, 2, 1. Whoever lost countdowns, and there I'm gone again. Let's talk about test grid groups for Kops then.
So that's me. Some weeks ago, Justin added a grid there. Me and Peter, well, helped a bit, very little. And I try to help with this. So to get the grid itself, to organize the bit, we discussed that we kind of need our own grid group, right? To have the tabs. So this is my PR trying to move that forward. I think Peter took a look. So right now it's not a big change from what we have, but basically it makes us owners on that grid group. So we can later improve the script and the output so it can be split into more tabs. So I'm waiting for an okay from you, and then I'll hunt someone from SIG testing that can approve that thing.
It looks good to me. I will certainly approve it or LGTM it, whatever I can do. I'll try both and we'll see what works. And yeah, I do think we'll likely need a second approval.
That's not a problem. I think I can get someone from there to approve it. So should be ready early next week.
Awesome. Just FYI, today is a holiday at Google, and Monday is a holiday in the US. So
okay.
If you don't get anyone responding to you today or on Monday, don't take it personally.
Thank you.
But thank you for doing that. That's really great. And yes, it looks great.
Cool. Any other comments? Last chance. Okay. Speaking about releases, there is you again, asking for the 119 branch and what's to be done with the 118 branch.
I think 118 branch so that we can start merging the things that are tagged as 119. So at least my change for ARM64, it's getting very old and I have to rebase it anyway. So I would like to rebase it only once or twice.
Yeah, like I agree with this. I mentioned this briefly before we started recording, which is like in the past we have had lulls in activity, and we have used those lulls to drive the releases sort of on a natural way. And we don't seem to be lulling. We seem to be continuing to pick up the pace, and so we are going to have to like force the branch cut. And so I feel like we should cut the 118 branch and get it stable, and with that we can hopefully get 117. I think that will help get 117 out the door as well. Like this feeling that we have the branches in the various levels of stability. I know we had hoped to not have too many branches open. I don't know whether this will actually be just the way it is, that actually like we do actually need a bunch of branches open at all times, just from a like they are all stabilizing at different rates point of view. But I guess we will figure that out. But yeah, if we don't cut the branch, I don't see us ever releasing 118. So we need to cut the branch.
Yeah, the time to cut a branch is when you have things that you don't want to go into the release. And so we have that. I would like to get a focus on landing as many 118 targeted PRs as first before we cut that, if we can. But that's
the next point. One of the things that we agreed last time, that we will merge it.
And, yeah, I think we can maybe go into that already. So we just combine these two. So let's discuss removing support for Chorus and Jesse just right now as well.
So I think we agree that it will be merged into 118 because by the time it gets out, this will be anyway very dead. If you, Justin, can change the milestone tag to, or someone else to change it to 118, I think this is why it wasn't reviewed or merged yet.
Cool. Yes. By the way, if someone else wants to try, you may be able to. I don't know if anyone's tried using the /milestone command. I don't know who has that permission. I'll try. But
you have to be a release manager for that, according to the documentation.
Yeah, it's super messed up in when you can use that command. Like, I think it is if you own the repository or you are some kind of very high level stuff.
I don't know. I think Peter managed to use it. Right, Peter? Can you set milestone on PRs?
I can set it. I've tried using the / command.
I can set it just using GitHub as well. So.
Yep.
Anyway, we should try to figure that out. What if you try? Please do feel free to try using the command if it's appropriate, and we can try to figure out the permissions at that point. Like we can ask you, well, why did this not work for this person, type thing. But yes, anyway, that's a sidebar. We have multiple of us have put it into 118 at this point, so we will get that merged. I think we agreed that as we discussed last time. I don't think we need to discuss it further unless anything has occurred to anyone in the interim.
Cool. So we do have a decision, and thank you, John, for taking all the notes for me. That is helping a lot. Enable launch templates by default in 118, especially because it is already tested and fixed in terms of all known issues. Potentially needs more testing, but Schifrin is probably, in a sense, saying it probably helps releasing it to get to the final stage of it being final, right?
I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about this. I have one point against and one point for. The point against is I don't think Spot Instances is working with it. Last time I checked. And I don't know if anyone can contradict me on that. The point in favor is that it does look like Amazon is certainly going in this direction. And in particular, the instance metadata service v2 is, to my understanding, only available in launch templates. So, and as far as I can tell, like they are not planning on changing that. So there is important functionality that is only going to be available in launch templates. So we should like move to that. So yes, I guess
Did we just get the feature landed in 118? I was thinking have it feature flagged for one release and then.
We have it feature flagged already, but it's set to false. So I think it's been there for some time.
Well, it's been there for some time, but then I changed it so that it tags the behavior of the tagging of the underlying volumes and such. That all got refactored recently.
You changed it then to true?
No, not the feature flag, but when you do turn on launch templates, it now tags the
root volumes.
Yeah.
That was my main goal, but once I started tinkering with it, I pretty much tried to fix, with Peter's help, all the bugs that were reported. Or anyway.
Yeah. And I think that particular set of refactors should be feature flagged for one release before we do it by default.
So you're saying that we should keep it in 118 as is and in 119 to switch it to default?
Yes, that's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
I don't think your tagging is as risky as you're suggesting, John. I think.
Okay, if that's too conservative, I'm okay with a different decision.
But I also, I certainly think that like I don't know if anyone else has got like spot instances working with it. I do worry that we don't have as many miles on it as we'd like, I think.
What do you mean by spot instances?
Yeah, so we use it with mixed instance policies and spot instances.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do as well.
That's the only way you can use instance policy, I think.
Okay, I will find out what I tried setting max price and I don't think it worked for me, but I will try again.
It's slightly non-intuitive in that you have to like tell it to not. We initially found it confusing because we had to set the above base of on demand to 0 to force it into using spot.
Yeah, there's like it's not a kops thing; it's a very Amazon thing. Where it's like there's a few like flags you have to specifically set, otherwise it won't work. It's not a kops thing. Like even if you just want to manually set it, it's very confusing.
And
trying to figure that out was like me talking to Amazon support for 2 hours on the phone, trying to get technical support, get it working in the way I wanted it to be. So launch templates is, you really need to know what you need to configure. It's definitely not kops, but if you know which flags to set, it eventually works.
Maybe there's documentation improvements that we could do to help save people some time.
Also, there are 3 things in there. It's launch configuration that we use now by default. It's launch templates, which we want to use in the future, and mixed instance policy, which is some kind of launch templates. So it's a bit different. It's still launch templates, but in order to use mixed instance policies, you have to use launch templates, and everyone that used it until now got it. So we have only one smaller piece that was never applied by default. So the launch templates worked for everyone that used mixed instance policy, but not for those that didn't.
I have a suggestion. We don't need to block the branch cut on this decision. And,
no, we don't.
And we should all on our development experience, use launch templates, and then we can reach a decision on it, and we can like we can continue once it's. I don't believe anyone's proposing that we put it into 117, so it doesn't need to block 117 either, and we can like make progress on all the other fronts and make a decision that will hopefully be a fairly easy touchwood cherry pick that we can like either cherry pick a turn it on type thing or not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the docs for how to turn on spot price would certainly help me.
Okay, any other remarks?
I'm okay. So.
Good. John, the question is if there is any requirement to support instances that are older than a year.
Yes, so I'm refactoring some of the cert issuance, and I would like to get some of the, there are currently 2 existing certs that are issued by NodeUp that have 1-year lifetime, so I don't think currently masters that are greater than 1 year would work. And I would like to extend that such that no node that is older than 1 year would necessarily work, and see if that is fine with the, whether that is a requirement that I'm breaking.
The 2 certs that are existing, are those the 2 etcd ones, or are there other ones as well?
The 2 that are 1 year, let me see, are there's the Cilium etcd secrets, which almost nobody is using, and then there's a Cube API server client cert to etcd, which is 1 year.
I think that's kubeadmin and Kubernetes default behavior. They just update it every time you update Kubernetes, like automatically with it in the process using kubeadmin. So that's the default that the Kubernetes project is doing.
Yeah, it gets updated whenever you roll your masters, but any individual master instance cannot survive being a year old.
Yeah.
And I believe there's another data point that I don't know whether it's happened yet, but it looks like it seems pretty clear there will be a 1-year support policy for Kubernetes versions as part of the LTS work stream. They're making that a year. So I don't think that means it will be, I can't imagine there will be too many nodes that don't need any updates for a whole year, but it's not inconceivable that such a thing could happen. Maybe. We don't have a mechanism to surface it either, do we? That's like, that came up with the etcd problem, right? If we got to the year, the nodes would stop working and we wouldn't know why, and we wouldn't have a warning that like you should auto restart before then.
Yeah, I did, for my 1-year certs, I did add a 30-day skew so that nodes will expire on different days, hopefully.
Oh, that's nice.
We could have a kops controller component that terminates instances after a minute.
Well, we could have rolling update note, 11-month-old instances is needing update. And actually, we could even make that configurable for those of us who like to keep our nodes a lot younger. But
there's also a potential integration there with the node problem detector. Like if we could treat this as another, we could treat it as a node problem, whether or not it's integrated with node problem detector or not, but like the same exposure mechanism, and then some policy to auto restart nodes that have been problematic for some period of time, or that are more than n days old, where n can be your personal preference. Like I know a lot of people like to, it seems like a good idea to do that from a security standpoint anyway. I just worry that I think it's a great idea. If we can get all of that in, I think we should do that, and I think that'd be great. I think until we have that, I worry I think we should maybe make it a little bit longer than a year, just because of the LTS being a year as well. But otherwise, I think if we were to say 15 months or 18 months, I think that sounds very reasonable.
Okay, because we currently have a 1-year thing on the API server to etcd. So
yes.
So you want to extend that?
Please. I don't want to have to go through the, but we did like the sort of, we had the high the P0 to fix that for etcd manager. And I think that was disruptive.
So how many months?
Yeah, I think trying to stick to basic Kubernetes as much as possible is usually a good idea because people will get confused. And I think it's more important, like, for example, the node problem detector, to do it that way, simply because of it drives visibility. So for me as an administrator, I just don't worry about the masters for a year, which is certainly speaking for itself. And then all of a sudden they just disappear and come back up. I can see many people going into panic mode and trying to think the cluster got hacked. And we had one guy deleting the entire kops created cluster, including API server components, because he had no idea what was happening and he was scared something might have hacked the cluster. So I would rather try to keep it as default as possible, but make it visible to people as much as possible. They need to do something and to give them a clear path and what to do, simply because of people destroy clusters otherwise not knowing what is happening.
So, I mean, I love the initiative. I love the skew is brilliant. Like, that's really good. I think, like, we have a roadmap. We're not gonna, I don't know, unless you pull a John, you're not gonna, like, we're not gonna have it like tomorrow. So, like, in the absence of all of that, like, how about 15 months? Is that okay? 15 months with your skew? That seems pretty cool.
Okay.
Plays very well into the release cycle for LTS releases as well. So you have like 3 months to update, which is one minor version of Kubernetes, which is probably pretty awesome.
And it also sounds like most people are doing this anyway, because I don't think anyone other than John has noticed the 1 year API server thing. And I presume that was through code inspection.
Just so we're clear, we're okay with moving the 10-year certs to be 15 months as well, correct? For the master kubelet and the kube API server.
My plan is move all or most of the client and server certs from being cloud up to being node up and making them short. Issued on the box.
Yeah,
that is part of a refactor.
I was reviewing that yesterday. I just didn't know if there's anything else using those certs that are 10 years that I don't know about that needs to be 10 year.
Well, I was going to leave the CAs as 10 year.
Yeah.
That's, yes. The CA rotation remains too hard, and so the others will be keeping the CA as 10 years and the anything you can issue on the client is great, because it means just simplifies everything.
And the legacy etcd manager certs I was going to leave alone and let them get deprecated out.
Cool. Any other last remarks? I see people thumbs upping this as well. So visually it looks pretty much like a decision. Issue or pull request 9040 by John, time budget for rolling update unit tests.
Yes, so one of my rolling update tests flaked. It's got a section where there's a race where the test has to win. The thing is that happens several times throughout, so let me pull up my ticket. So basically, we can add more delay into the test to make it more likely it'd win the race, but the question is how much time do we want to grant to the rolling update part of the integration test? So,
but you're asking for like 10 seconds, right? Not minutes.
Yeah, it's so if we increase the delay from 20 milliseconds to 100 milliseconds, that makes it take 1.2 seconds longer
per test, and that seems fine, right? The big win in a lot of this is, if I recall correctly, one of the slowest things in our unit tests is key generation. We generate a lot of keys. I feel like that would actually get us more than the 10 seconds back if we ever decided it was, or whatever it's going to be. So I don't see any reason to. Let's do the pragmatic thing here. That's my opinion. I don't know if anyone else cares about the second.
Okay.
Cool. Let's continue. Last one by John, which is update the owners file.
Yes. So basically, this is a proposal, or I ran metrics on the number of people, or number of approvals that came from each approver, and number of LGDMs that came out of each member, and have a PR 9105, which throws a fair number of the approvers into the reviewers list, puts myself and Cyprian into reviewers, and takes some of the less active approvers into emeritus status.
From my perspective, as being one of the ones going to emeritus, essentially fine for me. So I think we've had many days and time to talk about it. Works for me.
I also like that it's very data driven. So I think this is the right thing to do to reflect the reality on the ground. And if anyone objects, that everyone is welcome to object here. But if anyone objects, like at a later date, we can always like consider them as a special case in any direction. I don't know if anyone else has any objections in any direction.
I'm just thinking about potentially the emeritus ones. Maybe we could put them into reviewers because of this will essentially give them emails for the pull requests they got assigned to if they are interested. So it might drive a little bit of stuff. So they don't have to be approvers, but maybe for reviewers to get a little bit more like people in there. I don't know.
I think it's not very useful having inactive reviewers. So I kind of, if they're inactive, I'd rather they not be there.
Yeah, the thing is, what I'm thinking about, for me especially, I got a little bit lost because I missed the emails that I got when I was a reviewer. So I would have reviewed many more if I would have received emails that there is something to review, which drove me off a little bit. So I'm thinking of potentially I find the time to actually review stuff again if I get notifications that there is something, because it's not a black box anymore. So I don't have to be approver for that, but a reviewer might be interesting for some of the people essentially leaving in that sense, but it doesn't kick them off entirely.
I'd be in favor of you adding yourself to reviewers.
Yeah. If anyone wants to add themselves back to reviewers, I think both Chris and Ryan are here, so they can voice if they want to be reviewers or not, and we can go from there.
Cool. So let's get that merged by, I don't know, next week. I'm not in favor of keeping this open for many more weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go. I mean, it's only the only one I wasn't sure was Ryan, whether you want to say something. You unmuted for a second there, and then.
Yeah,
we're fine. No, I haven't had time to put towards the project lately, so hopefully that'll change. But until it does, it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's great. That's what Emeritus is for,
yeah.
right? To
yeah.
like, be able to come in. So yeah, if we put Christian back, or Chris, sorry, back on the reviewers, then I think we can merge, I guess.
Well, I mean, you can merge that already. I'll just create another one to put me back to reviewers. I wouldn't really mess with that because if I simply can't edit pull requests because I'm not like administrator on the project and all of that stuff, it's too complicated. So just merge it like that. And if anyone's interested in going back, just create a new pull request and we can like fast track that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
If I can go slightly off topic, I would like to encourage approvers to look at LGTM'd PRs and get them in.
In that sense, also for reviewers, I would encourage them, if you find something that you know this and that approver is potentially knowledgeable in that sense, do assign them to the issue as well. So I think you can really make it visible to them a little more that there is something they could be approving for. Justin, you look like you want to say something. Cool. Ryan, allow users to override etcd settings, CP to 117.
Yeah, just a question. Do we want to cherry pick that one back to 1.17? We've cherry picked it in our own branch back to 1.16 at this point. So I think it's a useful one to get back. if there's no objections, I'll open a cherry pick for it. I just wanted to bring it up.
I think it's safe. I think it's useful.
I think you might need to cherry pick. I had a prerequisite PR to that one that added a new MVAR API field.
Yep. Yeah, I found that when I did the 116.
Good. Sounds good. The next one from you, initial validation during rolling update. Does single try?
Yeah, I brought this up, I don't know, like a month ago, the last time I was actually on a call. And I think, John, you had some other things you were looking at in this area, and I think we decided not to merge it at that time. And I just wanted to see if you were good adding that in at this point, if you had more concerns.
Haven't I already merged something like that?
You may have. I literally haven't seen anything in like a month now, so.
Yeah, I think it doesn't do a single try anymore.
Okay, perfect. I'll double check, and I just knew it was still open, so.
This is getting pretty efficient in here. Justin, let me know when you're done typing so I can read the entire thing.
I'm done typing, yes.
Cool. So yeah, Justin wants to talk about recent PR node rule potential collision with EC2 instance lifecycle label. Should we rename the label? Justin, what do you want to say about this?
Thank you. Yes, this PR went in, which is, I think, a good idea. It basically surfaces one of the EC2 instance lifecycle attributes on the nodes, which is nice. However, it reused the prefix node role Kubernetes IO, and I worry that is a potential collision. And like node role has its own complicated history, and I don't know whether it would be easier to avoid reusing node role. And I don't know whether any has any context on why we did node role. And if not, I'll just comment on the PR and have that conversation there.
Yeah, there's a lot of instructions that say to put node role spot worker on spot workers, and the spot instance termination controller.
Yeah, that's a few years or 3 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer. All right.
It also makes it visible in kube control list nodes or git nodes.
Yeah,
that's
which may or may not be useful, but
that's going to ruffle some feathers, I think, is sort of my problem. The spot instance controller you mentioned, which one is that?
Sorry, the spot. Yeah, it's the spot termination handler. It's something which listens on the AWS metadata and drains your instances before they get nuked.
Cool. Do we know if it would be really nice? Do we know if EKS does this?
Sorry?
Do we know if EKS does this? Does anyone know?
I don't think so now.
Okay. That's a pity. That would have been a nice like air cover for us. We could, but okay. But yeah, thank you for that. Sorry.
Fortunately, we can say that it's a common tag that is used for this spot termination. I think it's a popular thing. We used it in the past to notify us on Slack when a node went down, for example. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for the context. I will read more and understand.
Anyway, it's just a label or something, so we can change it at any time. We don't use it in kops for anything.
Yeah, but we do add it automatically. I don't think there's even I don't think there's a flag to turn it off either, right? As if I recall correctly.
No, it's in the.
It's in the kops controller.
Kops controller, so pretty hard.
Yeah, but there's not even a flag that someone could set if they want to turn off. So that was just my concern. That's all. Thank you for the context, and I will look at that a little bit more. Maybe I'll add a flag or something. Always another flag.
Okay, in that sense, automating things. Peter is asking Justin about a status update on release automation.
It's not been top of my mind, I must say, the past couple of weeks. We are getting pieces in line to make this happen. I don't think the pieces are there yet. I am hoping we can build, maybe I will try to build the 118 using Google Cloud Build or some other repeatable process. I think the changes, there were a couple of changes I got in a couple of months ago, I think that, a couple months ago now, which I think make that repeatable. And so hopefully that will be, make that reproducible, and that is a good step towards it. The idea being, if we have, I guess reproducible isn't technically required, but the flow will be, we build builds continuously using CI, which I think is in place today. I think we have the ability now to use those CI builds as is. There will be a, we will create a PR to copy some artifacts from the staging repo to a production bucket, which is our release bucket. And at that point, those artifacts will be published. And the idea is there will be a small set of people that are able to approve the PR, and that PR will effectively be the release, at least on the binary artifacts. So there's a lot of pieces there. I haven't yet seen any other projects, to my knowledge, that have it done. So there's not someone we can just totally copy. And there's definitely not any other projects yet doing binary artifacts, i.e. the kops binary. And I don't think there's anyone else uploading to GitHub, but those are all things that we can try to make progress on.
I think even SIG release would be kind of interested in that as well, because if they are getting like a little bit tired of their own 3,000 lines of bash or so to build containers in Cloud Build, to run the build for Kubernetes in Cloud Build, to upload it to stuff which is super linked on, you have to run this specific Linux distribution to use some specific send mail commands to send out the notification to the Google group to announce the new release and all of that stuff. So I think for the entire Kubernetes project, like automating binary builds and stuff like that could be very, very useful. And I know there is people in SIG release that are very interested, or at least looking into that as well. Like, what was his name again? Steven
Augustus?
Yes.
Cool. I will
so they had the ideas. Yeah, they had ideas to use Python. If it's not the Python Google is using, was a specific word. Or the way Google writes Python, essentially, and everyone else who worked at Google agreed. But other than that, it was a plan like a few months ago. I think it was the 1.16 release or so that people talked about that. And I don't know if there's been a lot of progress in that regard, but it was an initiative. And there is a like cover issue for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a longer term thing for the sub projects to be able to release artifacts. But yes, like SIG release of the main repo has its own complexity.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about releases, is there anyone else who has some things to talk about? This is your chance to speak up, because of the agenda except release plan is done.
Okay.
Ryan, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, John, can you take another look at that 8897? I just messaged you on it, but it still looks like it's valid.
I'll do that.
Thanks.
Good.
The releases. Can we start with 117? We actually want that out, so 118 is not that important.
Yeah, yeah. So I think 116 maybe we have already talked about potentially giving sub-releases in the prior points of the agenda, so that's pretty discussed. Blockers, yeah. Blockers for 117. We have something about IP table alternatives. We have something about Buster AMIs, which potentially could be the default. So there is discussion about the base image.
A whole bunch of just and only tickets.
These are just one ticket, basically. Which will be the base image? So I don't have any preference anymore. I just want it out.
I had an idea, which is, I know it's not ideal, and I really appreciate everything you've done. Can we kick it down the road. Can we just do the stretch for 118? Because I think that gets us enough time, and do Buster for 119.
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
I might have got it wrong. Can we just do another stretch release for
Yeah, that's what I
118?
meant. Let's get it out. I
Or
guess
definitely for 117, and probably for 118 as well.
you mean you would like 118 to be still on stretch?
I think we have enough time on stretch for that to be fine, and then we can do Buster default to stretch, and we can do Buster default for 119.
So you're sure that you want Buster and not Ubuntu?
No, I'm not sure. Good point. One of the other things I feel like is happening is like a move to lighter and lighter weight OSs, and I feel like that's the advantage of maintaining our own image. And I feel like a lot of the, and I won't push back here, a lot of the, like we have this project which is now spinning up, which is building images. I imagine that will produce a lot of, it will hopefully simplify the process by which images are built. So it may become even easier to maintain an image going forwards.
Okay, but then at least we should make them generic or something, because we don't release images for, let's say, 112. The advantage of using the, let's say, official images is that they work for any release. So if Debian releases a new Buster with updates, we can just use it in any release. If you're doing it in in the custom pipeline, then we don't do it for those. We do it only for the last 2-3 releases, I think. Or
I think
we'll do it for everything.
Well, I think we go back further than that, but yes, I accept that point. And I think also like the older images, sorry, the newer images should work for older ones, but I know we've had problems with like uninstallation or installation of different versions of Docker and Containerd, for example, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because we actually install it. But considering how things are set up, one of my proposals was to just copy the Docker packages onto the image and node up to install them, because it uses the cache to install them, so it doesn't download them again, at least.
Yes, and that's nice because we're already talking about not starting Docker anyway, right?
Yeah. At least Containerd doesn't work at all with the custom images, because Docker, well, there is some race condition there.
Yeah, my concern with staying on Debian is the older kernel versions.
Yes, I think I had a look at this, and the version that we're running is the same as Google's cause. So the GKE team we can leverage some of the work the GKE kernel team does there, which I thought was maybe an advantage. But yes, and Buster is not going to change kernels at this point. So in 6 or 9 months, cause may advance kernels, and the cause team may advance kernels, but the like Buster, for example, might not or will not, I think is fair to say, right?
Yeah, for sure. At least the Amazon Linux guys advance kernels, and they get the newer patches. They try to backport as much as possible, but at some point they just move on. Debian for sure won't do that. Also, in regards to Buster, there were a ton of bugs related to IP tables that I don't think they ever fixed. So I think they were approached in various ways to fix, I think, 3 bugs. and they never did. For all three of those, Kubernetes had to do workarounds so that it works.
This is iptables legacy or iptables, sorry, iptables or iptables NFT?
I think it was a I don't remember exactly which ones for which, but I think there were common for all of, there were some bugs in each of those and they needed fixing. Some were pretty simple bugs, but I guess no one on the Debian side answers.
Let's be, this is a big problem. Let's focus on one thing at a, let's see if we can make, for 117, are we okay with sticking with the next, which is bumping stretch?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. And then for one,
should we just take a poll on what most of the maintainers and active contributors use? That way we know what we're familiar with and we just use that. That might be a better way to go.
That seems reasonable. Do we want to do it in a doc or?
Yeah, I can put a spreadsheet on and send it to everyone and everyone can contribute.
I also just think, like, I know, Cyprian, you've brought up these points before and I keep forgetting them. And I feel like a doc might be nice to just be like, here's why. And then we can say.
Then let's maybe make a PR with, I think Peter did something similar, or an issue, not PR, and say, let's like Rocket is for Buster, I don't know, smiley faces for Ubuntu. And anyone can add some opinion. And I would say that we should do this for 118. There is still enough time. And if we have the process to build things, we know that both Buster and Ubuntu are pretty stable because they ran for, well, we ran it in production and also in test grid. I think pretty much everyone here used one of these. So I don't see why wait until 119, but for 117, I think it would be best to get it out and not debate too much.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you for that. So if we stick with stretch for 17, we move the IP tables discussion to 118.
I think the IP tables discussion is pretty much dead for now. We have to pick up a default instance, default image, and we can deal with the IP tables thing later.
Okay.
If it's Buster, we really need a custom image to disable NFT by default. If not, we don't.
Good. That sounds like a stable agreement to that point. Potentially desired, we have etcd manager to use environment variables for customizing the backup retention.
Yeah, I think we talked about this and agreed it last time. I just need to merge it, I think, right?
I think you agreed to look at it.
Okay, I definitely agree with the principle, and I will look in detail at the code, I think.
But the other one, it's pretty important that it will make startup of the cluster faster. So yeah, if you can get on that, so that we merge it or test it.
Yeah, that one's really good as well, because it's not just the minute we share the minute we save directly, but also like the back off of API servers. Like if we can stop API server going into back off, that is a win.
Yeah.
I've also realized that we used to have a similar strategy in ProtoCube, where it delayed.
We still have this code in ProtoCube, but I think it's less visible.
Well, I don't think so. In ProtoCube, it would be that we would delay starting kubelet until after we'd started etcd. And that meant that API server effectively wouldn't go into back off because etcd would, I mean, it's a race, but in practice, etcd would have been scheduled first before API server, if I recall correctly. I think we had that, but we definitely don't have that with etcd manager. And so like, this is a big win, and I don't know if we can do something similar there, but for API server, but anyway, it's a good step. So thank you.
So I didn't notice API server going into backup with this enabled. So
yeah, it should be, I mean, it should be much better. It's yeah. But I think like sometimes you like there's a long tail where sometimes like bring up takes much longer than you expect, and I think this sort of thing is a big contributor to it. Like when API server goes into backup, so this will make it much better.
And do you want to consider deputizing a second merger for etcd manager? So something to think about.
Are you volunteering?
I would have to spin up on the code. I'm not competent currently, but
I'm certainly very
if you want me to
so
push me in that direction, I'd be willing to take it on.
That would be great. Yes, if anyone wants to, we should probably move it. I tried getting it so that it had the Kubernetes API machinery, and that did not work. But I will see if I can move it into. I will talk to. One of the things we could do is there is this etcd ADM project. I wonder if we can do the same thing we did with the image builder, where you move the code more or less wholesale underneath that, and that will help with our unification of the code, and will also mean we get the machinery for free. I will talk to the etcd ADM maintainers about that, and I suspect they might be amenable, but I don't want to speak on their behalf.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looks like a lot of meetings for Justin. Good. Last but not least, for 117, deprecation announcements for 118 removals.
Yeah, so we'd like to, if we're good, know whether or not we're removing things in 118 before we cut 117. So we need to get those in the 118 so that they get into the 117 release notes.
Yeah, I think the first one is CoreOS and Jesse, which I think we agreed, and the legacy etcd manager. Did we decide yes on 118? I can't remember, I'm sorry. The legacy etcd provider.
I think it is, like it's mentioned in the release plan for the 118 track to remove support for the legacy provider. So okay. I think that's probably the node of the agreement in that sense.
Well, I just don't recall. So if someone could just, yeah.
Well, we certainly have to make the decision.
Okay. I can't remember whether anyone said they were still using the provider, and this was only removing it from versions of Kubernetes after 118. So it's still,
I said I was still using it, and I'm the one proposing it be removed. So
that's right. Now I remember.
Yeah, he proposed, but there is no comment in the agenda about like if there was a decision or anything. It's just on the agenda.
Okay.
I thought we decided to remove it. No.
Yeah, I think we all agreed on that. I think there was something anyway broken there.
I mean, if not then this is an agreement in that sense. Or does anyone object? Sounds
John.
like
who proposed it?
Sounds like yes, decision to remove it. So in that sense, 117 is done, and we already covered pieces of 118 as well. I think we also talked about removing support for CoreOS and Jesse in that sense. But any final words for 118 in that sense? Awesome. Disable static tokens by default as of Kubernetes 118.
Yes, this is relatively new. We're removing support for basic auth, and I would like to reuse that flag for disabling static tokens in 118 so that I don't have to add a new flag.
I don't think the flag is named so well. So maybe just add another flag because this will remain. I think people still want an unsecure, easy way for this.
Yeah,
Well,
I know one company that does, like, the product they sell is automatic Kubernetes creations, and they totally rely on these tokens for admin uses for their platform. So I know a lot of people that actually use these static tokens also in how they operate. Just removing that in a simple way would probably hijack a lot of operations for many people.
Well, because I tied it to the basic auth, and they are basically equivalent to basic auth.
Yes, but it's a different name. So if people look for search for token, they wouldn't find it.
Can you remind me which ones are being removed upstream?
Basic auth.
In Kubernetes, basic auth is being removed entirely?
Yes. Was removed.
Yes, was.
In 119.
Okay. And the current flag is disabled basic auth.
Is disabled in 118 based on previous chat we had in office hours. And it will, so that people know that it will be removed in 119 so that they can have time to do some workaround.
It sounds like we might need some conversation in the PR.
That seems like a good way to do it.
If people have concerns, that would probably be a good place to put them.
Okay. I mean, it's PR 8850. So if you want to go there, it's also linked in the agenda. Feel free to join in the discussion and put in remarks into the PR. This would probably blow this meeting in that sense. Talking about PRs, last thing for 118 in that sense is pull request 7919 to make core DNS the default, whereas previous office hours notes indicate there was a decision to wait until 119 with node local DNS.
Can we wait until 119 with node local DNS and do both?
Yeah.
Yeah, I added that item. I didn't realize we had already punted that. So Rodrigo and I just mentioned in the PR that it'll be 119 now.
Okay. So just to clarify, is there anything left for 117?
I need to build it.
Hmm?
I need to build an image for stretch, but I think we've decided that will then unblock everything else. We have to merge these PRs, but I don't think there's any decisions, right?
Yeah, I meant that there is no blocker anymore, so 117 can be released sometime in the next weeks or something. Yay!
Yay! And that's a great question. Does anyone know of any other issues? Right?
Yeah, well, I think those are the blockers listed.
Yeah, I mean, just like stability, like in Kubernetes, like, oh, we're using 117 and it crashes every 5 minutes type thing. Good.
Good. I think that's the agenda for today. So thank you so much for joining. See you in 2 weeks, same time, same location, essentially. Maybe different moderator, who knows? Justin is smiling, so nice, wants to do it again.
You have to do it all the time.
Damn it. Okay, thank you so much for joining. This has been recorded and will be online as soon as the person that did record it will upload it to YouTube or anywhere else. Stay healthy, I think, is important to say in these days. And thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting.
Have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one.
Good weekend.
Yep. Enjoy the day for the Americans. Enjoy the weekend for the Europeans.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.